Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen, and today we are going to be diving into the technical analysis of Bitcoin, otherwise known as Bitcoin's TNA. Some of the sweet spots that you guys might be enjoying on both sides of the chart, whether it's going up or down. If you know how to play, there's money to be made. So with that in mind, we're just going to dive right into the charts and take a look. So here we have a Bitcoin open on the daily, and for those of you that are private members in our private group, you will already know what I'm about to talk about here, at least on the daily, and it is the continuation of what I believe to be a bull flag. Now, for those of you that are interested, you can join our private subscription. It's only $30 a month. It is jam-packed full of value. You even get a one-on-one with Tiho, yours truly, as part of your monthly subscription. And from there, it basically just helps me assess where every member is, because I've noticed there's a massive difference in every person's portfolio, and therefore it's also a big difference in the risk to reward relationship that each of you are to be making. So I've been giving my time freely to help you guys better assess your own individual situation. So go to arcanebear.com, sign up for the private newsletter if you know what's good for you and want to invest in your own education and time. But again, the bull flag that I think is a continuation pattern, which is going to bring us up into the approximate $18,000 range, 18,666 to be somewhat specifically exact. I think the important part here is to remember that technical analysis gives you fundamental options, and this is around a 75% possibility in my mind, and there are room for downsides, although I believe those are less likely. One of the room for downsides there would be as low as $1,500 at around maybe a 5 to 10% possibility, and the other 10% possibility is actually down to around 4,400 if you look at it on the weekly. But let's stay in the positive remarks, because I do actually believe it is fundamentally the direction we're going to be making. There's a few other waves in the background that we will go into, such as Raven and Litecoin and BSV at the end of this episode as well. So with the current contention of the bull flag on the daily here, I do believe we're going to go into the $18,000 mark. Now there's evidence for this on the 45-minute and the hour-long chart as well. If we zoom in here into the hourly chart, we start to see forming what I believe to be an ascending triangle. Now, ascending triangles are actually continuation patterns of the upward momentum that we're seeing, and we can actually see the upward momentum of this triangle potentially bring us into the mid of November, where we made our original contention that this consolidation line would take through. Now, generally, you actually want a more solid, let's say, trend line top test, whereas here we have a much longer triangle. It's not a very, very bullish triangle, but I believe as soon as we bounce up and above this on the day, especially on the daily here, it's going to become a very strong indicator. And up top here on the Eagle's Nest, you can see that we've actually turned above the top moving average as well, which is important. So because we're seeing this top moving average, we're probably going to test 8,500 again over the next few hours, come back down to test 8,000 by the mid to late ends of October, and then start the final break, what I consider to be the breakout around the mid-week, 2 weeks of November. So again, this is important because patience and accumulation go hand in hand. So I'll just quickly, we'll take a look at the bullish ascending triangle. Although it's using here the initial rally of an upwards transition and continuation pattern here, we can actually see that there are other ways to take this same ascending triangle. And it's actually coming from the upward momentum of the triangle itself, as we were in a continuation pattern, I believe, from the long-term upwards trend that we had originally exited from the $3,000 mark. So I believe this is a small rally pattern, it won't be a huge breakout. It will likely probably bring us to the $9,700 area, where we will retest the 200-day moving average here on the daily. So if we go in on the daily, we'll make this a little clearer here. I'll clean up I'll delete some of these chart patterns. Again, my goal here is to provide consistent sentiment analysis. I don't try to change like the wind in my direction every day. I try to either decide if I'm bullish or bearish on the long term. For those of you that are in the private den, when we hit around 12,900 the second time here in the beginning of July, I think we're going to 7,700, and we hit that point dead on. And we've been consolidating here, and I said very specifically back in those days as well that I thought we would consolidate here for approximately 1 month to 2 months before making our moves upwards of $50,000 and then coming back crashing down around 50,000. Now, on the long-term projection, this actually lines up very, very succinctly with the May halving. Now, again, it's not an exact date, but it's fairly close, I believe there's a lot of hype that's gone into people thinking that the May halving is going to be a positive indicator, and therefore I think most investors and traders are going to get left out in the dark. This is a moment of buy the rumor and sell the news, and I believe this accumulation period here around the $7,700 to $8,200 area is going to be one of those cases of here's where we're buying the rumor, Bitcoin's going to explode, the halving is just around the corner, da 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 da, and we're going to run up to 50 grand, and then every hedge fund market manager is going to start realizing nobody else is going to buy, and they're going to start dumping on one another and likely drop from 50,000 down to 10. And the reason I believe that's going to be the case is that Bitcoin needs a nice slow growth. Now, it doesn't need to do anything that I think it's going to do, but that's my current sentiment analysis for the long term, and I've stuck with that since we hit this top in July. So again, the only things that would actually break that down are the fact that if we see a breakdown below 40, well, just for everyone's information too, bull flags, generally speaking, invalidate themselves when you see a retracement larger than 38%. So if we take from the volume candle here, we're pretty much exactly at 38% retracement levels for the bull flag, so we're sitting in a perfect position. If it breaks below that, I already have stop losses set in at 7,400 because I will believe we will go not just 6,700, but we would likely go to 54 and maybe even $3,800 after that. So I have very tight stop losses set on my trading account just in case I'm wrong. And that's always an important assertion to make, is the realization that we can be wrong and that we are all so often wrong. So we should set up ways to mitigate the risk in that case scenario. Now, again, there's a very important part here to understand, which is what is the difference between trading and investing. Me, I like trading. I'm very active in my account for a reason. Therefore, when Bitcoin drops lower, I try to accumulate more of it. When it also drops lower, I get stopped out in my trading account so that I can buy more of it. It's not just a hodl mentality, again, which is a new age slang for what older traditional farts like myself just call investing. It has been around for a long time. It basically means on average you are going to be looking for a long-term process of the investment that you make. Again, very clearly indicated by the mistakes that I made while investing in the CBD industry in the early 2000s. I made 200% and I sold, not realizing that these were things that you should just invest in and walk away from. This was long before the hodl market mentality came into play in the Bitcoin space, but in the traditional sector, it's the same thing. It's just investing. Us kids like to come up with slang terms for the exact same things our parents did. Oh, that crazy rock music, oh, that crazy blues music, that jazz, whatever it might be. Kids seem to always rebel, and I think hodl is an example of that, not understanding that it's the exact same thing. So just to clarify, I want to make sure that we are understanding the terms used, just to be a little clearer, especially for some of the, let's say, older farts like myself. Oh, it doesn't sound offensive to anyone, but I do consider myself rather, I'm aging, I guess is what it is. Look at these beauty marks I have on my face, the lines of better wear. So the point of this is, as I know I've just ranted on, my current sentiment is quite bullish. It will remain that way unless we break this 38% retracement value, and at around 76 to 7,400 I have stop losses set on my trading account, and we'll go from there. Although you could go short, I would not ever recommend that. I do not like leverage trading, not my thing. It's a very easy way to lose any account value that you have. So it's important that you play with the risk assessments that are valuable to you. So we're going to dive out just a little bit further into the weekly chart, and because I do want to give my perspective on the move to 50,000. I do think we will see two subtle bull flags, very, very similar to the bull flags that we had seen on the previous run-ups, although these are going to appear much, much bigger. We're going to take this second flag all the way up to around 18,000. We're likely going to make another flag again, and then I think we're going to go from that flag up to around 27,000. Now after that, it's too far into the future. I do think we will get massive FOMO, which will push us up to 50 grand, and they will have a massive collapse downwards once the price doesn't go any higher following the 2020 halving. Now that's nowhere near the $1 million Bitcoin that John McAfee and his friendly little turtle Schlanger are aiming for, but it is still a very, very non-conservative judgment at this particular point. So I will stand by that unless anything changes. So we're going to also take a really quick look at Ravencoin. For those of you that have been in the private Bear family member group, you've been following this one very closely. It had brought in over 60% returns for many of our members in the last few weeks. I exited at around 40% because I did have to take a little bit of a break. I had a wonderful time over on the island of Morotai, learning about wildlife conservation and what it's like to potentially secure hundreds of thousands of acres of property under government legislation and all these very complex issues. So here we can see, I actually think we're pretty much near the bottom of wave 4 of a larger wave 1. Now my original wave 1 assertions took us only to 420, so the fact that we've broken out of that now is a little bit more indicative of a much bigger run coming. In the past, we've actually seen Raven do this before. We could also argue to some degree or another that this was the top of wave 5 of wave 1, which would actually make a bit more sense, at least fundamentally speaking, because we did see kind of this sideways consolidation here for wave 4, which is indicative of a wave 4 itself after this deep retracement of the wave 2 almost back to the top. So I'm going to clear this screen up here because we have a lot of our golden eagle crossings on there as well. For any of you that are interested, we do create all these indicators for free. You can download them by going to tradingview.com/arcane-bear, I believe, or just going to TradingView and looking up our account. You can download these for free, and that's the bear claw, the eagle crossing, and the eagle's nest up here as well. And hats off to all the people who originally helped design these. I've basically remade them with a few slight tweaks. So the bear claw was actually originally called the super guppy, and all I did was change a few small things to suit my particular trading style and habits. Again, on the 45-minute here, we do see that the 214 has crossed over the 300 moving average, and we have been in a downtrend since we broke here at around 426. I exited my position everywhere between 400 and 414 after making an approximated 40% gain here, around 33%. Didn't measure it exactly, but pretty close there. I know some of you did even better than I did, so I'm excited to see your own educational skills from the private bear member group going into making these choices yourself. We do not offer calls. What we do is try to empower everyone with the tools they need and the education to make the decisions that they need to make without having to someone hold their hand during that process. So really, really excited to see everyone grow and help everyone grow through that process. So a lot of you had asked about Litecoin. Litecoin's in a really interesting spot right now, mostly because for everyone in the private bear den that had exited, they exited approximately around 16,000 Satoshis while everyone was screaming that Litecoin is just going to continue to go higher. It's a great indication that you should be selling. The thing that I find interesting, again, is the long-term relationship that Litecoin and Bitcoin have to one another. I'm not interested in any way, shape, or form about US dollar pairings. The US dollar is one of the worst failed monetary experiments that we have ever seen in history. People just have not recognized it yet. I feel it is very much so akin to Wile E. Coyote running off the cliff and simply having not looked down. He has not yet realized how dangerously high he is before he falls into the ground. Now, the education of the average person and the layman may never look down, and we do not know how much further this money printing process can go. So it is a bit difficult to ascertain what these price movements in US dollars is going to be. Therefore, in the growth of the cryptocurrency market space and the light of that as a whole, I am much more interested in the growth of each of these individual tokens in relationship to one another, and I believe that is a much better way to make any of your sentiment analysis. We can actually see some type of ascending triangle taking place here, which did break down. So it did invalidate that process around the 9,000 Satoshi mark. But we can see we're actually headed likely a little bit lower. We could go as low as 4,000 or 5,000 Satoshis here with Litecoin, especially if Bitcoin does make that $9,500 run. Now, one of the things I want to do lastly and leave you guys off with this is talk about BSV. I do have that in my baby Bitcoin portfolio, which is my investment portfolio. It is not my trading account. The reason I do that is because I do not bet against controversy. Controversy has always a way of biting someone in the ass, and I would prefer not to be one of those people who gets bit in the ass by controversy. So just as I would have never bet against Donald Trump becoming the president, I do not bet against Bitcoin Satoshi's vision being able to cause enough controversy to gain momentum in these markets. That's not to say I think he's the original Satoshi, but that does mean I'm not going to bet against his nonsense. Nonsense and controversy do very, very well. People seem to like the chaos as well as the calamity. So it's always a bad idea to bet against it. But one of the things I do want to point out is actually the relationship of Raven versus Bitcoin. So on the right-hand screen right now we have Raven, and on the left-hand screen we have Bitcoin. And as you can see, during December 2018 into March, Raven managed to go up 600% versus Bitcoin's price movement for the first, what is this for Bitcoin? For the first 150% of Bitcoin's movement, Raven did approximately 600% versus Bitcoin's price. So every time someone's like, oh, if Bitcoin goes up, Raven will go down. That's not always the case. It's not the only time it has happened. The last time Bitcoin went down, Raven jumped multiple times as well. So here we entered Raven's position in October, and sorry, this is actually a consolidation period. So here we had Raven's price uptick during Bitcoin's price uptick as well, although it was a small one. And then as Bitcoin lost a bunch of its value, so did Raven. So again, there's no real correlation between the two yet, but what I am interested in is the growing relationship between both of these markets and the way they develop together. That's also my interest in Litecoin versus Bitcoin as well. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. I've ranted for long enough. I miss you guys. I'll start producing videos on a more frequent basis now that we are back at home in Bali. If any of you guys are in the Canggu, Bali area, you're welcome to come visit me at the Amo Spa. I love the ice baths. Anyways, give us a thumbs up if you like this content. Look at that. You know, comment, share, like, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe again so Google gets confused and YouTube pushes it up in the algorithms. Maybe I should just talk about controversial things all the time and change my sentiments. Bitcoin's going up, Bitcoin's going down. Oh no, it's going up, it's going down. I'm bearish, I'm bullish, I'm bearish. And if I sounded like all the other YouTubers, we'd probably get more views, but no, I'm not going to do that. I actually really like staking my flag in this particular moment in Sybil flag and watching to see what the sentiments produce. It's just a much stronger case. And again here, if I do just leave you guys with this, on the weekly right now, we do see that Bitcoin has crossed over on the Eagle's Nest and is heading up towards this first line here. This is a velocity-driven indicator too, so once we cross this upwards line, it could mean massive momentum for Bitcoin. So keep an eye on all these indicators and please do download them. Again, sign up for our private bear den before we raise the prices, and you guys are left thinking, why the hell didn't I sign up when it was cheaper? I can get a year almost for the same price as 2 months. Yep, and you will be thinking that because I believe we're going to be correct. Now, probably an arrogant asshole in saying this, but I hope you guys have a great day. It's Tea with the Arcane Bear. And we'll see you on the other side.